It's Talk Funny, a podcast by Mark Bailey and other comics from all over. We came to Japan to avoid bank manager Karens in the US that tell us not to smirk at bank rules. Hey Karen, you work for us and we will smirk if we want to, smirk if we want to. The Talk Funny podcast from NagoyaRadio.com and Nagoya Comedy. Here's Mark Bailey.
We're back with another edition of Talk Funny. I'm Mark Bailey and Steve Howard's here again.
Hello.
Steve, did you have a semi-legal brothel business on the side that you wanted to push? Or, because I'm doing infomercials now on Talk Funny. I thought it was supposed to be funny. You got any side business or anything going on? We've mentioned before you do have books on Amazon.
Yeah. There's a... I guess it would be considered a writing platform that pays, a new one that's kind of out called Newsbreak. And I haven't been writing. I've been cutting and pasting and putting old stuff up on there. But they pay like $25 to $60 per article or story that you put up there, which is, if you're a creative writer and you've ever submitted your short stories or poetry to literary journals, you know that $25 to $60 per poem or story is a pretty good money. And they pay you immediately, which you don't, normally with literary journals, you got to wait 5 or 6 months to even get a response. So
yeah, that's a good price. Who's paying for this?
Well, it was Newsbreak. I think their main stream of revenue is through ads, I believe, because when you put a story up there, there's 3 or 4 ads in between all of your paragraphs. So I'm assuming that's how they're making their money. But it was started by a couple of guys that had similar websites that were really successful in China. And then I think a Chinese-Canadian guy, that was started Yahoo Talks or something. So it's guys with money that actually started it. So I'm assuming that eventually I will get paid for the money that they're telling me I've earned. So.
And we already know that all good things start in China. So
Right.
what could go wrong? I think I told you off mic, I had a guy tell me one time recently, and he said, wrote 2 books. And I said, so books about what? Well, about this and the other one about that. And where are these published? Oh, they're not published. They're just, okay, that's not a book. That's something you have in your drawer and you pull out every once in a while. And I said, actually, you wouldn't know it. I have 2 books, but I don't talk about them. Are they published? I said, yeah, that's what books are. They're actual hard copy books. One is a textbook and one is about comedy.
There's a debate too amongst if you're self-published, you're not really published. And I've done both, but I kind of agree with that to a certain extent, because it is true that pretty much anybody can get on Amazon and self-publish a book. There was a guy that he actually wanted to prove how easy it was, and he published a book that had 3 pages and then got convinced 4 of his friends to buy copies of it the same day, and it made it onto Amazon's bestseller list because there was only 2 other books with that topic that had been written, and nobody had bought those. So he became an instant bestseller by selling 4 books, a 3-page book that he sold 4 copies of.
Wow. Yeah, I want to clarify, if a website that you don't run publishes it, I consider that published.
Yeah.
Because I've written a lot of language articles. You don't write them on paper. They just publish them on a site that everyone wants to see. Like, I got into a lot of trouble with one of them. I didn't realize that it was controversial. Somebody posted a question. This is before Quora, right? And somebody asked the question, if I were going to study any of these 3 Asian languages, in order of difficulty, for people who've studied all 3 of them, which would you categorize as easiest and more difficult? And I said, well, Chinese would be number 1 because they have a different picture for everything.
Right.
There's like 3,000 kanji, and you got the tones. Yeah. So that's an easy one. And number 2, I would say Japanese because you have the 2 syllabary and then you have the borrowed kanji. But unlike Chinese, the kanji depends on the pronunciation on whether it's in a compound or not. So you have to learn all the compounds, and then you have to learn the separate kanji and the meaning for it. But you don't have to learn the tones. And then 3rd would be Korean has a very logical language. It was built that way on purpose. It's almost mathematical. If you turn a character one way, it has a ah sound. You turn it the other way, it has a o sound. You turn it upside down, it has a u sound. It's very easy to remember. Yeah. And you can learn to read Korean a lot faster Now, the language grammatically is very, very difficult. Just because I say a language is easier than another one
Right.
doesn't mean you're an idiot
Yeah.
if that's your native language.
Yeah.
I mean, Koreans are much better at speaking Korean than I am. And so I got all these angry
Right.
Korean people
Yeah.
writing in. And it was the site called How to Learn Korean. So why are you even on this site? They're just curious. They think we talk about them. He said, you don't know, you're calling Korean simple? And I said, find that in the article. It doesn't say simple at all. I'm not talking about Korean people. By the way, when you're born, you don't get to choose what language you learn. Did you know that? It reminds me of a city one time that we went to. And they were all foreigners in the audience. And they're like, we're really proud to be from this city, blah, blah, blah. I mean, actually, you're not from this city. You're from Ohio.
Right.
You're from Brooklyn. You're from Florida. You're from Canada. Why are you so proud? You didn't build this city. You didn't build the city, and you can't vote. You didn't build this city. So I don't understand the pride. And the first time I went over to Osaka a long time ago, and I was telling jokes, the difference between Nagoya and Osaka. And afterwards, a guy who'd lived in Osaka, a long-term guy, I guess 8 years, and I could barely understand his English because his Osaka bin was so thick. And he said in English, we don't need people from Nagoya to come over and make us laugh. We're a bigger city than you are. No. And I said, who's we? You mean Osaka's a bigger city than Nagoya? What did you have to do with it? Did you lay the pipes or something? Are you an architect? Or, you have a work visa. You get your visa canceled every year and renewed, okay? I wouldn't call yourself a resident just yet. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think the other city that we visited one time that we can't mention, they also complained that we were making jokes about English teachers because there was no English teachers in the audience, obviously, when we were there.
We're English teachers, so what else are we going to talk about? So next time I play that city, I'm going to talk about the differences between Chomsky's original stance on the Vietnam War and his enhanced stance, because that's a real knee slapper when you talk about that, and that doesn't offend anyone. No, that would offend conservative people, but yeah, you just can't win. It's almost like if you tell a joke that you're not serious. I don't know. It's kind of strange. It's not my thesis, right? You see the big sign behind us says Comedy Night?
Right.
Even one of our club owners where we played one time, and one of the biggest laughs I got that night was I talk about girls I used to date, and one of them was, I said she was dyslexic, and it was inappropriate sometimes because she was always asking to suck my kid. And then a guy that we all know very well, April Cash, that'll ring a bell for you. The guy didn't pay us in April and never has paid us for that. He said, your joke is technically incorrect. I'm like, yeah, it's a freaking joke. He said, actually, she wouldn't say suck my kid, she would say cuss my kid. And I said, yeah, you might not realize this, but I actually weighed both of those, and I picked the funnier one. And that joke was my closer, and it got a lot more laughs than you did when you got up talking about how to castrate a horse in Texas. So shut up and make me a martini. Your joke would have been more correct if you had changed it this way. Yeah, but it would have been less funny, and that's what a joke is supposed to be. It's been Mark Bailey with Steve Howard on Talk Funny.